When Beijing was awarded the 2008 Olympics, it promised to deliver the best games in Olympic history. China saw a golden opportunity to show the rest of the world just how much it's achieved over the past quarter century. But the international community has chosen to focus instead on just how much China has failed to achieve. From human rights in Tibet to smog in Beijing, China has attracted criticism and controversy that has tarnished its Olympic dream. I'm Taimur Nabili, and on this edition of 101 East we ask, when it comes to China, is the glass half full or half empty? One of the conditions attached to hosting the world's biggest spectacle is you must also allow the international spotlight to focus directly on the host city. And China has spent tens of billions of dollars getting ready for its close-up, hoping to present a flawless image. But as Chan Tao-Cho reports, the changes that have been made to Beijing don't compare to the changes that have occurred to its people.
This is one face of modern China. Beijing Welcomes You Back is a recent hit by underground band In 3, rappers combining Olympic fever with hip-hop.
Olympics has a sacred long history. If cities made up of foreigners with long noses can host it, so can Beijing. It proves something about us.
In the 7 years since China won the bid to host the Games, a wave of nationalism has lit up the younger generation. In June 1989, Tiananmen Square, Beijing, patriotism had a different face. Young protesters, many of them from Peking University, suffered a bloody crackdown on their pro-democracy demonstrations. Many unarmed civilians died as tanks rolled in and soldiers opened fire.
We protested because we loved our country. We wanted to push for its improvement. It was a sense of responsibility we felt as passionate young men and women. I lost my legs in 1989, 4th of June. I was about to withdraw from Tiananmen Square when I was crushed by one of the tanks rolling in to quell the protests. Now when I think about it, some of the ideas were immature, but we were so young. We were in our early 20s. Any young person needs the sense of responsibility and passion. There's nothing wrong with that.
But what is wrong to Fang Zheng is how his painful past seems to have no place in his country's future. At present, few Chinese relate Tiananmen Square with the June 4 incident. Today, for most of China, Tiananmen Square represents the heart of a city ready to host the world's most spectacular Olympic Games ever. Because through the government's control of information and education, the full-blown accounts of the 1989 tragedy is not a part of national history and collective memory.
Actually, we haven't heard of it before I attended high school. We can get access to the whole, not the whole event, but some parts of the event from like the internet. Now YouTube and Wikipedia is open to China.
China's state-controlled internet is opening up, but not completely. Although the government promised unrestricted access to online material during the Games, foreign journalists have been unable to visit sensitive websites. Professor Shi Anbin trains government officials on how to handle today's media demands. He says China wants to liberalize the media at its own pace. A loosening of control was perhaps best displayed in the aftermath of the Sichuan earthquake in May.
If I would narrow that topic to just Olympics, I think this is, I would think it's a new era, especially after the earthquake. You can see actually Chinese media have we call it a kind of liberation, that they have more liberty of sort of issuing the news, especially during the crisis like earthquake. So whether the progress of Chinese media can meet the expectation of Chinese audience and also international community, this is probably a biggest challenge during and after the Olympics.
China has changed much since it won the rights to host the Olympics. Whether that change is permanent or as fleeting as a rapper's hit song remains to be seen.
Joining me now to discuss the impact of the Olympics on Beijing and on China in the setting of the Bird's Nest Stadium are, from my left, Professor Xia Liang, Professor of Economics from Peking University, and Professor Sun Yuzhong from the Beijing Foreign Studies University. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Professor Sun, let me begin with you. China, historically, it seems, has preferred to deal with its own business and not get engaged too much with the international world. And yet, the Olympics is an open invitation for the international world to come in and look hard. Is this a symbolic and significant decision? And is it a long-term one?
If you look at China from a short-term view, then you could say this is a very dramatic thing that we are doing here to invite foreign very important political leaders to come and tourists to come and athletes. Now that you could see as a gesture of showing China's active endeavor to introduce itself to the world and to increase the mutual understanding between China and the West, especially considering the mounting prejudice on the Western media or among the Western public against China.
Can you give me some examples of this prejudice?
Now, anyone who picks up a Western newspaper, the New York Times or the Times, or switch on the scene and could very frequently, very easily find instances of prejudice against China, criticizing China for its all kinds of issues, human rights issues or pollution or corruption or anything. So many examples.
We'll come on to the specific examples again in just a second, but Professor Xia, let me ask you in a broader sense, isn't this exactly the problem, that in inviting the Olympics in, China is inviting the sort of scrutiny that perhaps it didn't want? Did it misjudge how the Olympics might affect the way the world views China?
I think the outside world, they also tell the part of the truth, because all these issues like human rights and pollutions are very important to Chinese citizens. And also I think the institutional change would be vital important for China in the future. So Olympic Games only is a game. We don't take that for granted as the most important issue in the contemporary life of Chinese citizens. Generally speaking, of course, it's a good thing to happen in China. But what I care much more about is how can we take this chance to improve our quality of life in depth, not only on surface. I think we can take this opportunity to let foreigners to know more about China, not only for those infrastructure or surroundings.
And yet, as Professor Sun has pointed out, the foreigners don't seem interested to know more about China. They're more interested in launching criticisms at them. Do you think holding the Olympics here was therefore a mistake?
I don't think so. I think people, could come and see and talk to people and, and find out for themselves. We have confidence that any person without prejudice, who is not that stubborn, could come and see with their own eyes the changes that have taken place and the improved living conditions, the improved environment, although, certainly pollution is always there. But progress has been made And that's what everybody can see here.
Okay, so we'll come back in just a minute and talk about some of those criticisms and whether or not they are valid. Do stay with us. You're watching 101 East in Beijing for the Olympics. Back in just a couple of minutes.